You're listening to The Gary Harris Show on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa.
We've made the process easy and affordable. Visit RexMD.com right now to get started. That's REXMD.com.
The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV. Crimson Tide Kickoff. Play-by-play for Alabama sports and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for The Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
And good morning, everybody, and welcome into the Gary Harris Show for this Monday, November 4th, 2024. I'm Gary Harris. I got my main man, Chase Brumfeld, manning the controls, taking your phone calls on the Pinnacle Park at North River hotline at 205-342-9904. We're ready to rock and roll this morning. Alabama football is back after a bye week that I think just came at a perfect time. I think this was a great bye week for Alabama, for the football team, obviously for the players and coaches and staff, but I think for everybody. I think for the fans. I think for the media. I think it just came at a good time, kind of a reset button for these final four games, and I think it was welcomed. I know I enjoyed it. I enjoyed having a Saturday off and playing golf over at Tall Pines Golf Club on Saturday afternoon and watching some other games, but stress-free games, just taking it all in, and now kind of ready to go for this final four-game stretch of at LSU, at home against Mercer, at Oklahoma, and at home against Auburn in the Iron Bowl, and then play those four. If Alabama can win them all, I think they'll be in an excellent position to make it into the college football playoff. Helped by the fact that some things went Alabama's way. That's another reason this bye week, I think, was so beneficial, is Alabama didn't play and moved up to 11 in the AP poll and in the coaches poll, and with losses ahead of them by several teams, Alabama is in a much better position today than it was going into Saturday. Penn State was in the top five, but the Nittany Lions lost for the first time. But you had Texas A&M lose, Clemson lose, Iowa State lose. Those were all very beneficial losses for Alabama. So it was a productive weekend, even though the Crimson Tide didn't play. Hey, good morning, Chase. What about you? Did you enjoy? Of course, I know you're a Mississippi State guy, so your Bulldogs were able to pick up a win over UMass as we predicted. But did you enjoy having a break from Alabama football this weekend?
It was weird. I kind of missed it. Covering like week to week, Gary. It's good to.
Well, I guess it's different for different people. I think for most people that go to the games every week, and like I said, in my case, cover the games. It was welcome, and it was such. Hey, what about the weather? I mean, I was texting back and forth with WVUA 23 Chief Meteorologist Richard Scott this weekend, and I said. I don't want to be that guy that's complaining about beautiful weather because it sounds so silly to be complaining about this type of weather. But, Chase, you have to admit, it has been strange to be into November now, and you can count on one hand. In fact, I think it's like 2 or 3 mornings where it's been cool, where you've had to go out and put on a jacket. Now, I remember the week before the Tennessee game. That's the only week that I can remember having some mornings where, it was a little bit nippy. It's just been, Saturday afternoon when I was playing golf, I was sweating. You know what I mean? Not just warm, but the humidity. I was sweating on the golf course.
Yeah, Gary, it's weird. It is so weird.
It is strange.
I don't know why it hasn't kicked in yet. I've been waiting for fall weather. The leaves start to fall on the ground. I can see some cold, but it's just been hot. And I don't know if it's ever going to kick on, but even before December, I'm scared, Yeah,
everybody's wondering now if it's the forecast. When you look at the 10-day forecast, it's just more of the same. It's more 80s for highs, lows, 60s for lows. Again, it's beautiful weather. I just don't think it's normal. The bees don't know what to do. I think the birds, I saw a bird building a nest, which is highly unusual for the for the fall. It's just, but anyway, it's pretty, it's nice, but it's more like summer than it is November, and it just feels peculiar. Having said that, it is November, and so as I said, you're at a time where college football is winding down, and the NFL is halfway through its season, and for those teams that it's not going well, changes are happening. Adam Schefter reporting that the Saints are firing Dennis Allen, their head coach, after the Saints lost to the Panthers yesterday. Big win for Bryce Young, by the way. More on that coming up. And the Raiders have basically let go their entire offensive staff for the most part. Offensive coordinator, offensive line coach, quarterbacks coach, all out there in Las Vegas because, they've got 2 wins. The Saints have 2 wins. The Cowboys only have 3 wins, but Jerry Jones still backing Mike McCarthy, his head coach, and that staff. All right, anyway, I'm going to run the show down for you here in just a minute. We'll get to some phone calls, but I do need to go ahead and tell you this hour of the Gary Harris Show being brought to you, as always, by Alabama Credit Union, member-owned and not-for-profit. It really is just a better way of banking. Let that sink in for a moment. A traditional banking institution is taking its profits and paying off its shareholders. Alabama Credit Union is taking its profits and returning them to you, the member, in the form of lower interest rates on loans and higher dividends. That's something we can all get excited about. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Some rules and restrictions do apply. See if you're eligible for membership, then join today and feel good about your money. And put a little extra change in your pocket. All right, here's the lineup for today, and we're kind of working on the fly a little bit today. Casey Smith on golf, our 10:30 guest, has a flight, had a flight cancellation, so his schedule's off. He's going to be in the air. He's not available to come on with us this morning, so I didn't find that out until about 8:30, and so I don't have a 10:30 guest scheduled. I'm working on getting one plugged in. I do have Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, Tider Insider TV at 9:30, so we're ready to roll with Rodney. And I do have some audio available from Bryce Young, from Derrick Henry, and also from Hugh Freeze from their loss Saturday, another loss for Auburn. Imagine that. They continue to – the word out of Auburn continues to be we're better than our record. The record's not indicative of who we are. Well, maybe it is indicative of who you are. Maybe you're just not good. I've been cutting Auburn a lot of slack too. I've picked them to I did not pick them plus the points against Vandy, but I've been picking Auburn to win some games, and maybe they are exactly who their record says they are. Maybe they're just not good. I mean, that's at some point, you can't just keep looking at a team and saying, well, if this had happened or that had happened. I mean, they're well into their season, and 3-6. Is that's their record, and they've got to win out just to become bowl eligible. And let's just be honest, that's unlikely when you look at the fact that in addition to Louisiana Monroe, they've got a home game against Texas A&M and a road game at Alabama in the Iron Bowl. So kind of that's the way that looks. But elsewhere, as I said earlier, in the NFL, it's getting down to the nitty-gritty now. We've kind of separated the teams that are contenders from the ones that are already just playing out the spring. And that's happened in college football too. But in the NFL, like I said, Dennis Allen out as head coach of the Saints, Raiders firing basically most of their offensive staff. Other teams are looking to pull the plug soon on coaches if they don't get some wins going. But a big win for the Panthers. Bryce Young played well. Mike Bama in the NFL. Tua played well, but the Dolphins lost to the Bills on a 61-yard field goal at the end of the game. Jalen Hurts played well. Eagles won over the Jaguars. I'll run down all the Bama and the NFL stats for you. I've been doing that. I'm putting that out on social media, and I you can find it at my Gary Harris WVUA 23 Facebook page. You can find all the Bama and the NFL stats that I put out last night on Sunday night, if you like tracking Alabama. All right, it's 12 minutes after the hour of 9 o'clock. Let's go ahead and jump out on the Pinnacle Park at North River hotline at 205-342-9904, 205-342-9904. We're going to go ahead and take Jim, and then Corey, you hold tight. We'll get to you in the next segment. Let's go ahead and get to Jim. Good morning, Jim.
Hey, you know, when the Dolphins, I didn't see it, but when the Dolphins tied the game up 27, and they had the Bills stopped on 3rd and 9, but there was unnecessary roughness penalty. You know what that penalty was? What happened? Or was it?
Well, it was Jordan Poyer, the former Dolphins, former Bills safety that targeted the Bills wide receiver.
Oh,
right.
Well, was it a blatant call? I mean, just like, was it just stupid?
Yeah, I mean, he led with his head. I mean, it was the rule. I mean, same thing that Brian Branch got ejected for, which I thought was a little strong, the former Bama safety. But Jordan Poyer, yeah, he led with his head on the wide receiver, and you can't do that.
Yeah, well, and I guess good. Them guys are being paid millions, and they can't, control themselves sometimes. So I guess college kids are going to do it.
Yeah, so it was one of those deals where you're right. That penalty is what gave them enough yardage to try the field goal. I mean, guys still made a 61-yarder. Now, I mean, it wasn't like it was, a chip shot. But
one longer than that, though. If you wouldn't.
Yeah, these guys are making it from 60-plus. What's weird about field goal kickers is Will Rockert hadn't missed a kick all year. And then last night on Sunday Night Football, he went 0 for 2. One was a 54-yarder and one was a 31-yarder, but then we saw that he was hurt. He was not, he had a heating pad on the sideline. He wasn't kicking off his plant foot, but he had not missed a kick all year. Then last night in prime time, he went 0 for 2. So kickers, while they can be hot, they can still go through weird. You look at Justin Tucker for the Ravens, who for a long time was clearly the best kicker in the league. And he struggled some this year. Even yesterday, he snuck a couple in just barely inside the upright. So kickers are peculiar, but boy, they make them from over 60 yards now on a regular basis.
Yeah. Hey, the 5 teams left with 1 loss in the SEC. A&M still the only one to control their own destiny. But if LSU loses this weekend, all 4 of them other teams would control their own destiny because Tennessee plays Georgia and A&M plays Texas. So that would but if LSU could be throw a wrench in the spokes if they keep winning, a force keeping somebody like Georgia out, possibly, Yeah,
it's going to be an interesting stretch run here, Jim. There's so many different scenarios now that are in play with A&M losing and all that's going on. It's this SEC race right now, going into the final third of the season, could look completely different in a couple of weeks. It's just a lot's going to change, man. And if you're Alabama, and I've said this, and again, I could be proven wrong, but I feel like if Alabama wins out, they're going to be in the playoff. I just do.
Oh yeah. One more quick thing. What was how bad was the call? Was it called a timeout with 2 minutes 1 second left in that Auburn game? It sure looked peculiar. I mean, you got a 2-minute timeout coming up, and you use a timeout at 2:01. I don't really get it myself. After the 2-minute warning, it would be a punt, so the clock would stop after the punt. So it was, they.
Yeah, I don't listen. I don't understand it, Jim. I don't. It was a bad timeout. I mean, it really was. The guy made a mistake, and he evidently the way their teams.
Yeah, that ain't hindsight. I've listened to the last part of it on the radio, and I've saying to myself, as soon as the play, when the play ended, I said, sure they ain't gonna use his last time out now. And sure enough, they did. And I'm like, so what I'm saying, as a fan, I'm not a fan of Auburn, but as a football, I was thinking, real time, like. And so when they called it, it's like it wasn't no Monday, morning quarterback, and it's like as the game was going on, I'm like, okay, that for sure they're going to let this go to 2-minute warning. And hell, they called a timeout with 2:01. I'm like, man, how crazy is that?
Yeah, they got some issues right now. Hey, appreciate it, Jim.
All right, man.
Thank you, buddy. All right, 9:17. We'll get to the break. Rodney Orr coming up at 9:30. We've got Corey on the hotline holding. We'll get to you on the other side of the break. I'll run down the SEC football from this past weekend. Bama in the NFL. A lot going on this morning. It's a Monday headed into the LSU week. We'll start prepping for that big game right here on the Gary Harris Show. We'll be right back after this.
Trending on the Tuscaloosa Thread.
Good Monday morning. Tomorrow's general election ballot will include an amendment that applies to Tuscaloosa County. Amendment number 1 would undo 1940s legislation that created a special tax district in West Tuscaloosa. Residents there pay property tax in the city but have no vote in the city or county school elections. Click TuscaloosaThread.com for more local news, sports, and weather coverage all throughout the day. And stay tuned tomorrow night, beginning at 8 for top-of-the-hour coverage of local election returns. Don Hartley, Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
As much as Innisfree has evolved, it will always be that place to escape and have a good time. Whether it's for a game day weekend, to reminisce on college days, or to create new memories, if you're looking for a good time, there's only one thing to do. Head to the Free at 1925 University Boulevard. And don't forget about the Lucky Lunch Meat and 3 special, Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. Get a meat and 3 vegetables for just $8.49. Or for a lighter appetite, try the Lucky Lunch soup, salad, or sandwich combo. I'll see you at the Free. Tuscaloosa's Old Colony Golf Course is an 18-hole championship layout designed by 1976 U.S. Open champion Jerry Pate. Director of Golf John Gray and fitting specialist Bob Montgomery are PGA certified. Mike Shivitz is the head professional and director of the Tuscaloosa Junior Golf Program. Call today to secure a tee time.
What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
Jewelers is an ideal gift for any student, alum, or fan.
See the collection at Hudson Pool Fine Jewelers, Greensboro Avenue, downtown Tuscaloosa, or at hudsonpool.com.
Life doesn't wait for when your finances are in perfect order. It just happens. But no matter what surprises come your way, Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. They offer an easy application process and fast decisions so you can stay focused on feeling good about whatever life brings your way. Alabama Credit Union will be here to help make it affordable with great personal loans, mortgages, and auto loans. Alabama Credit Union, loans for real life. Visit alabamacu.com to learn more. Some rules and restrictions apply. See if you're eligible for membership, then join today and feel good about your money. Since 2011, Billy's Sports Grill, located on Main Avenue in historic downtown Northport, has been serving their legendary signature chicken sandwich, award-winning wings, and handcrafted cocktails. Billy's is also the spot to watch all your favorite sporting events with big screen, high-definition televisions, both dining rooms, at the bar, and outside.
The place to be. Visit us now to save big and discover why so many are switching to BMW. BMW of Tuscaloosa. Take your dreams for a drive.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Sky partly sunny today, the high 79. Tonight mostly fair with the low at 64. Tomorrow and Wednesday, a mixture of clouds and sunshine both days with a chance of scattered showers. Afternoon highs very close to 80. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 71 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
You're listening to The Gary Harris Show.
Goal line in, touchdown, Alabama.
On your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9. And streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
(9:21). Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show here on Tide 100.9 FM at 12:30 a.m. WTBC. Let's jump back out on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline, and Corey has been patiently waiting to get on the program, and he is with us now. Hey, Corey.
Good morning, Gary. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited about this basketball season, but I have a few things I want to ask you. One, are you concerned about these basketball injuries heading into the season? They will be okay as the season goes along.
Well, I mean, I think ideally, you'd rather not have any injuries. Obviously Youngblood's out until I think mid-December, but for as Sherrell Reitzel and Grant Nelson, The word is that they're all available to play tonight, but I don't think any of them are going to start. They'll be on a minutes restriction, so they'll kind of be trying to play themselves back into game shape and, get ready for the stretch run. So I'm not really concerned from the standpoint that I think they're all going to be fine. But, yeah, you'd rather, just hit the ground running. I mean, you'd rather not have 4 people injured, one of which is out for, another probably 6 weeks or so, and have 3 others that are kind of, trying to play themselves back into game shape and haven't played the exhibition games. I think that's not ideal, but it certainly shouldn't be an issue tonight against UNC Asheville.
How much pressure do you think is on this team to make the Final Four because they know they have a talented roster?
Yeah, I think there's pressure. Of course, the thing about the pressure is you just have to go out and play your game and have the kind of season. You don't know. Let me see how I'm trying to answer this. There's pressure to get to the Final Four because this team is expected to make it to the Final Four. And it's hard to do that. This program had never had a Final Four team in its history until last year. And now you've got a team that everybody says should make it to the Final Four. So, yes, I think that's pressure. But you don't know if the pressure – in other words, if you get to the tournament and you make it to the Final Four, everybody will say, well, you know what? This team lived up to expectations. If you get to the tournament, you get knocked out in the first weekend, or you get knocked out in the round of 16, then everybody will say, well, they couldn't handle the pressure. So you don't even really know if the pressure is real until March, because I don't have any doubt in my mind that this team's going to have a really good regular season. Now, will they win the SEC championship? I don't know. Will they be a number 1 or number 2 seed? I don't know. But I would guess that they'll at worst have a really good season and be a 3 or 4 seed at worst, hopefully a 1 or 2 seed. So I guess if you were to have a poor regular season, let's say you finished, right around 500 in the league or a little better than 500, and you get into the NCAA tournament and you're like a 5 seed or a 6 seed or something like that, then I think you could say, well, this team didn't handle the pressure. So, but really we won't know until March whether or not this team, when we look back on the season, if they make it to the Final Four, then we're going to say, you know what, this team handled it all well. If they don't, then we'll say, this team was a disappointment, because fair or unfair, that is the expectation for this team, is to make it to the Final Four and maybe even win the national championship. So if that doesn't happen, then there'll be clearly a lot of people saying, they didn't handle the pressure.
Well, not only that, but we don't know how healthy Alabama's going to be throughout the year, and we don't know how good the SEC is going to be. I mean, the SEC could be loaded because, Auburn's good, Kentucky's Kentucky, Arkansas's got Calipari, and, Tennessee's got Rick Barnes. So you just don't know how strong the SEC is really going to be. And the country, you got your blue bloods out there, so you don't know what the bracket's going to look like. Alabama could get a favorable draw. They may not get a favorable draw in the bracket. So Alabama had to go through our strong bracket side to get to the Final Four. So you never know how it's all going to play out. So even with the pressure, it comes with the privilege of earning it, because Alabama had to go through a lot of adversity last year just to get to the Final Four. And even though they lost to UConn, which was clearly the best team last year, they made the Final Four. Now they have to live up to, which would be a huge deal to go back-to-back. It all depends on how everything plays out. But I tell you what, in the NFL for Alabama, I think Derrick Henry, if he hadn't already, he cemented his legacy by having 100 rushing touchdowns, which I think Sean Alexander's the only Alabama running back to ever do it. But
he was, yeah.
To have 10,000 rushing yards, 100 rushing touchdowns is insane, and he's still going strong. And I just don't see him slowing down. He could have another.
Oh, he's a Hall of Famer. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. When he retires, he'll be in 5 years after he retires. There's no doubt about it. The shame is that Sean Alexander is not a Hall of Famer, And that's really disappointing because he had 100 rushing touchdowns, also had nearly 10,000 yards, which I wish he'd have gotten to 10,000 yards because I do think that would have put him over the top. But he should be in. Anybody that's rushed for 100 yards in the National Football League, there aren't that many, to be in the Hall of Fame. And to have two players do it from the same school, once again, is a testament to the University of Alabama history and tradition. So, yeah, on Derrick Henry, there's just no doubt. He's one of the greatest of all time. And as you said, at 30 years old, he looks like he's in his prime. I mean, he's got a chance to go for 2,000 yards this year, and you would think come back next year and have another type of season. Now, how many more does he have in him? I'm not sure, but obviously this year and next year, I think we could say he's going to be fine. Now, the key for him, I think, as a player is he wants to win a Super Bowl now, Corey. I mean, that's where he's at in his career. He wants to win a Super Bowl. He's with a Super Bowl caliber team. That's what we're talking about with Alabama basketball. I think the pressure is on the Ravens to get to the Super Bowl. It's not just to be good in the regular season. It's to make it to the Super Bowl and win it all. So if he were to do that, that would be, I think, he's already known as the king, but I think that would be the crown on his career, would be to win a Super Bowl with the Ravens.
Problem is they keep running into the Chiefs.
Huh?
The problem is they keep running into the Chiefs.
Well, they're going to beat the Chiefs at some point. I mean, I get it. I understand that. But I mean, if you're gonna be the team that, they played them in the first week of the season in Kansas City, could have won that game. They didn't. They were kind of still feeling their way with Derrick Henry. I know they lost to him last year in the playoffs, obviously at home, but they're capable of beating the Chiefs. There's no doubt in my mind about that. The Ravens, when the Ravens offense plays like they played yesterday, they can beat anybody. Now, they do have 3 losses, which is puzzling that they lost to the Chiefs, which you understand, but they lost at home to the Raiders, who are terrible, and they lost to the Browns last week, who are terrible. So that's the downside, is as good as they are, they've got a couple inexplicable losses on their record. And more of that comes from the defense. They had a big lead against the Raiders and couldn't hold it. They were in position, obviously, to beat the Browns and weren't able to do it. So they got to stir up the defense a little bit. But all in all, this is a team that has a Super Bowl roster, and they need to get going. Hey, listen, I got to hit the break. Got Rodney Orr coming up.
RexMD.com. We've made the process fast, easy, and affordable. Visit RexMD.com right now to get started. That's RexMD.com.
The flagship station for Alabama Crimson Tide football.
Alabama touchdown.
Only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
.33, welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. If you hear that intro music, you know it's time for Mr. Tider Insider Rodney Orr for his weekly visit on Alabama football. We'll also touch on a little bit of Bama basketball as well. Good morning, Rodney.
Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Doing well. I said earlier in the show that I think this bye week was just perfect for the team, for the fans, even for us in the media. It just really was, I think, a welcome break. And for Alabama, which didn't play, it was a very productive weekend. When you look at A&M losing, you look at Clemson losing, you look at Iowa State losing, even on up, you look at Penn State losing. Alabama moves back up to number 11 in both polls and now is in a really good spot heading to Baton Rouge. Now, you got to take care of your own business, but, Rodney, it was a productive weekend even when the Tide didn't play.
Yeah, it really was. That was kind of my lead in my Sunday thoughts last night, was even though Alabama didn't play, having the opportunity to watch some of these other teams, you get a little bit better feeling about where Alabama is. And I say that because none of these teams really are overly impressive, I guess. They all have issues, a lot of issues. We just don't see a couple of 3 or 4 teams like we have in the past, Gary, that I think really stand out above the rest. And I watch Oregon. Obviously they're 9-0, they're number 1, but they're not a really dominant team. You watch Georgia, of course, Alabama already has a win over them. And, they've been kind of hot and cold. They dominate Texas. They struggled earlier with Kentucky. They struggled a little bit with Mississippi State. I thought they struggled with Florida a little bit. I thought Florida went toe-to-toe with them the last 5 minutes of the game or so. Then you look at Ohio State. They're not really a overly dominant team. So I just look at all these teams that are considered to be a cut above, and it's really not that much separation. So I say all that to say, if Alabama can play clean football, they've got a chance not only of winning out in the regular season, but I think they can compete with any team in the country, and they've already proven that, with the win over Georgia.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about it. It's there's a lot of really good teams. I don't think there's a dominant team in college football. And so every Saturday, you got to go out and you got to get it. And for Alabama, you got to get it this Saturday night down on the Bayou. I mean, it is what it is. This is an elimination game. There's no way around that. The winner of this game is in good shape heading forward. The loser is, going to be trying to play to get to a good bowl game and start already to some degree thinking about next year, because the loser of this game is not going to the college football playoff Friday. So it's all on the line Saturday night for Alabama down at LSU.
I think so. I think, both these teams obviously fighting for their playoff lives in this game. So there's obviously a lot at stake. There's been how much at stake in so many of these past Alabama LSU games over the last, 17 years. Been pretty much every year. I mean, it's been Alabama and LSU, and the winner ends up going to the SEC championship game. So with all that said, yeah, there's a lot on the line. Two teams that are really talented in a lot of ways. Again, both have their flaws, and you look at LSU, and they're extremely dynamic as a passing team with Garrett Nussmeier at quarterback. Got some really good, outstanding skill people at wide receiver, Tyron Lacey, and then also the former Alabama player Aaron Anderson, who we were really high on when he was here. Didn't last long, but he was a guy who's really talented. He's making a bunch of big plays. And, Gary, I really like their tight end. I think he's a real dangerous threat, Mason Taylor. You just can't forget him. And then also their running game has not been great, but, they've had 2 weeks, so we'll see. They've got a really good offensive line that protects Nussmeier really well. They've got a highly touted defensive coordinator who I think, helped them improve some over the period of the season. But I think Alabama can, offensively, like I said, if they play clean, there's going to be a lot of opportunities there.
Ronnie, this is a new team, as every football team is year to year. This is a new coaching staff. But I do think the history and tradition that Alabama has in Baton Rouge matters. I think tradition is real. I think it carries over. I think there's an understanding that, these players are aware. Maybe they don't know the record. It's 29-10-2 all time against LSU and Baton Rouge. For Alabama, nobody has had more success there in college football, even close to what Alabama's done. I do believe that carries over, even to a new team and a new coaching staff. I think there is a confidence that Alabama has that other teams that go into that environment at night there don't have. And I hope that's the case, and I feel like it is. I think this program, the tradition and history that it has, carries over to every opponent, but particularly in a place like Baton Rouge where most teams go in, I think, intimidated. I don't think that's ever been the case for Alabama, regardless who the coach is or what the record of the team was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, traditionally or historically, they hasn't had the mystique over Alabama that it's had maybe with others, but Alabama obviously had a lot of success there. But again, in a way, like you said, this is a different team. This is a team, Alabama, that did not play extremely well on the road at Vanderbilt, didn't play extremely well on the road at Tennessee. Now did play better earlier in the season at Wisconsin, but the SEC game, it's really big, a lot riding on the outcome. That's going to be a wild, wild atmosphere. You experienced a lot of things at Tennessee, going to experience more of the same there at LSU, with that crowd. So I think Alabama's got to handle that better. They did not get off to a good start in that first possession. And it'll be interesting too, Gary, if Alabama were to win the toss, and this is just a little thing, they took the ball initially there at Tennessee and got off to kind of that slow start. What would they do this time? Would that play any kind of role in that? You don't know. But again, I think that the crowd, how they handle it, how Jalen Milroe kind of handles it, you can look back and say, he's been in some games on the road. Good example would be Texas A&M last year when the first half didn't go very well, but he responded in the second half extremely well. We've talked about the atmosphere at Texas A&M. It can be as loud as any. So I think you have to kind of draw upon that, the experience that he had down there that was positive, and, hopefully, he can play that same kind of game, manage the game really well come Saturday night in Baton Rouge.
Rodney Orr with us from TiderInsider.com and Tider Insider TV previewing Alabama and LSU. You've already laid it out well. What are the keys for Alabama going into Tiger Stadium on Saturday night and getting a win?
Yeah, I really think, Gary, they've got to, first of all, Nussmeier and that offense is that if you can slow them down, if you can get them out of rhythm, and few people have. Now, Texas A&M did in the second half, right? But that was at A&M, had the crowd behind them. They kind of pressured Nussmeier after he had a great first half. He had 3 interceptions in the second half. So I think Alabama really has to go in with the mind. I don't think you can play conservatively defensively. I think you have to come after him. You have to try to rattle him. You have to pressure him. You have to play with an aggressive mentality. Those are things that Kane Womack talked about were going to be features of his defense. These were things we're going to see. And I don't think we've seen it on a consistent basis for whatever reasons. We haven't seen that style of play. We saw it in the first half of the Georgia game, and we've seen it a few times otherwise, but just not consistently. But I think you're going to have to really bring the heat after Nussmeier. I mean, I really do. See if you can challenge him, get after him, get him on the ground, force some turnovers, and that type of thing. And then on the flip side of the ball, I think Alabama, and again, I may be misreading this, but what I saw in the Missouri game was a little bit of a different approach. I think that they did some things really quick, easy, safe throws for Jalen Milroe to get off to a good start, to get him into a rhythm, running the football, more, utilizing that offensive line, the guys that they have up front. And, I think that's really what maybe we're going to see. We're going to see more of that. Again, get Milroe off to a good start. Don't try to put everything off on him. Threw it 26 times in this last game against Missouri. Conversely, he threw it 45 times at Tennessee. I think you want to get away from that and continue to build on that running game with Justice Haynes, who seemed to gain some confidence in this last game. And then also, obviously, number 26, Jam Miller. You want to get those guys, you want to get the ball to them and really pound it. And if you can do that, control the clock a little bit more maybe, and then you can open up yourself for some big plays as well. You can do those things. I think you're in pretty good shape.
We talked about the bye week coming at a good time, the second bye, and here you are. You're 8 games in. You're 6-2 overall. You're 3-2 in the league. And I do think there's an understanding, Rodney, from this team and all these teams that, there's nobody undefeated in the SEC. Nobody. This is a different time in college football. Yeah, you know what? You'd rather have not lost at Vanderbilt, Tennessee. You'd rather have won those games. But you know what? You could have lost to South Carolina. You could have lost to Georgia. So you're right where you are. And I think this coaching staff can get across to this team that doesn't matter now. We're in position to finish this season off. And it's a 4-game season. And I think that there is a reset button. And I do think there's an understanding that what we have done in the past got us to this point, but it's what we do going forward that matters.
Yeah, I mean, it's closing the deal. Everything's in front of you, I think. I think you got some great opportunities. It's like I said, you've come a long way through the course of this season. You've lost 2 really tough games, but you've won some tough games, as you mentioned. So you're where you are right now. You still have opportunities in front of you. You kind of got to have that right mindset. And I'll tell you this too, you look back at how Alabama used that first off week before the Georgia game. They were really well prepared when they came out in that first half against Georgia. They kind of hit Georgia by surprise. They were really aggressive on both sides of the ball, played extremely well. They were clean in that first half for the most part until towards the end. They had a couple of things that went against them. That kind of kept Georgia, from upright, so to speak. Couldn't quite knock them out. But you see all that, and you think, hey, you know what? They used that off week really well. They made a lot of improvement over that week. And, I think that's kind of the same thing with this week. Hopefully they used it, and it was a very good off week, which I think it was. And, you kind of refine some things, and I think you have that opportunity, get some guys healthy. So I think Alabama should be in good shape going down there. Really just looking forward to see how they play. How do they respond after that week off? It's a lot on the line, a lot of opportunities. So I'm excited to see how, this coaching staff has them prepared.
Another benefit of the bye week, and of course LSU will benefit from it as well too. So let's be clear on that. But there have been some guys dinged up. This has been an extra week to get healthy and be as healthy as you can at this point in the season. So from a physical standpoint, the team should be fresh and revitalized as well.
I think so. I mean, hopefully, again, maybe Coach DeBoer fill us in a little bit more on that. This morning when he talks here a little bit later. Again, I think, as you said, it'll benefit both teams, equally, I'm sure. Gary, it's about preparation, as you know. It's about mindset and all of those things. And I really think that having the week off, coming off a positive win over Missouri. Look, I thought the Missouri game was Alabama's best performance in terms of from start to finish. I mean, it wasn't better than the first half of Georgia. No way. But I'm just talking about from start to finish, consistency, just kind of methodically the way they played that game on both sides of the ball. I thought it was probably Alabama's cleanest game so far from start to finish. It's a really positive thing. The question is now, you have this week off, you have a chance to refine some things, as I said. How do you kind of carry that over into this game against LSU? Because I really believe if Alabama plays clean, that their chances of winning are going to be really high in this game. So we kind of look forward to that. And I think, too, I really think overall, as I look at these two teams, I think Alabama is the better team. But it comes down to how do you execute, as we've talked about many, many times. And playing clean is a big part of that.
Rodney Orr with us from Tider Insider TV, TiderInsider.com. And Rodney will make his score prediction tomorrow night on our TV show, Tider Insider TV, at 6:30. So we'll have that to look forward to. As far as the conference is concerned, it is what it is. Most of this is driven by money. I get it. 16 teams, no divisions. It's going to be chaotic a little bit at the end. There's a lot of scenarios that could play out. But one thing I want to ask you about and get your opinion on, Rodney, is obviously if you go to the SEC championship game and you win it, you're the SEC champion, which I still think is a big deal. And you get the bye, and you're in your top 4 seed. If you don't win it and you have to play in that game, you're at a severe disadvantage. Let's just be honest. You'd be better off not going and getting in the playoff than if you go to that game, you lose that game, and then you have to turn around and play a first-round game in the playoff. That's going to be a major disadvantage for the team that goes and doesn't win the game, assuming they get in the playoff. It doesn't seem fair, but nobody seems to care. It's an extra game that they will have to play. So if you can get in the playoff, now if you win the conference championship and you get the automatic bye, it's worth it. But if you don't, you see where I'm going with this? What a disadvantage that's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really wonder how coaches overall in the conference feel about it. Feel about having to play that extra game. Is it worth it? I mean, yeah, you get like you said, you get the bye. At the same time, you just really wonder if, in the long run how it would play out for you. Now if you're in Alabama's case, here's the thing. What if you have 2 losses and you're going to the SEC championship game and you're going to play in that game, and then you lose in that game? And now you
might get knocked out of the playoff. You're right.
It might cost you a playoff spot. I mean, so maybe you hope that you don't go. You finish 10-2, you've got a spot in the playoffs. I mean, you just don't really know exactly how it's going to play out. How is that game held against you if you do lose in that position? Whether you're Alabama or maybe Tennessee or maybe whoever, LSU, whatever team got in there with 2 losses, I mean, it could be detrimental to your playoff hopes. So there's a lot of things that you say, well, all this. If it works out well for you and it's a positive and it gets you the bye, that's all great. But there's a lot of downside to it as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. But Alabama's in a good spot heading into Baton Rouge. Just got to take care of business on Saturday night. Basketball opens up tonight. The women get New Orleans at 5. The men get UNC Asheville at 8. Call earlier about the injury situation. Of course, Youngblood we know is out probably until mid-December, but Sherelle, Reitzel, and Nelson didn't play in the exhibition games. From what I read on from Field of 68 podcast reporter Mark Goodman, or Jeff Goodman, I should say, that those 3 guys will play, but they're going to be on a minutes restriction and won't start. Not ideal to have some guys banged up going into the season, but this is a deep team, and it sounds like all those guys are just kind of trying to play their way back into game shape.
Yeah, and the other guys have had 2 games together now, those 2 exhibition games, Wake Forest, obviously Memphis, so there's a little bit of a chemistry there that you've already had on the court. So, you'd love to have those other guys ready, and if they are and they can play, great. If not, you've got one of probably the deepest roster in all of college basketball for sure. And these guys have already kind of played together. They have a little bit of a feel going into this game. So, again, I think Alabama, where they are, obviously that'll be fine. But, the sooner you can get those other guys healthy and get them back on the court and get them kind of integrated into what you're doing, I think the better.
All right, Rodney, awesome stuff, man. And as I said, TITV coming up tomorrow night at 6:30. Quick note on recruiting. I thought the defensive line played maybe its best game of the year against Missouri, and then Bodney Cleveland, highly touted interior defensive lineman for the class of 2026 from Parker High School, committed to Alabama on Thursday. Nice pickup there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think Alabama has not recruited extremely well on the interior yet in this class, or the 2025 class. They've got some guys maybe that could be interior guys as we move along, but I think picking up Bodney Cleveland for the 2026 class was really good. Actually, I talked to someone I really trust, defensive line guru, who said this is a really good player, and Alabama did a great job in terms of getting his early commitment. Hopefully, again, it's a long way away, as you know, Gary. A lot of things can change, but to be able to get a player of that magnitude that early, if you can hold on to him, it's a really big pickup.
And Rodney, a word about TiderInsider.com, because I know it has been going full speed. Of course, your updates and information is great, but the forum, always an entertainment venue unto itself.
Yeah, you're right about that. It's TiderInsider.com. It's only $48 a year, and you can get instant access with your credit card if you prefer. There is an address there to send a check. Gives you all our premium information, but also, as you mentioned, our All Sports Forum. That's our community there of Alabama fans. And like I said, it's been on a roll. It's been on a roll. It's really going to pick up this week, obviously, with coming off a bye week. And again, it's only $48 a year.
Thanks, Rodney.
Okay, buddy. Take care.
All right, Rodney Orr from Tider Insider TV and TiderInsider.com. It's 9:54. We'll come back and wrap up hour number one, and I have been able to secure a 10:30 guest. We'll tell you who that is on the other side of the break. We'll be right back with more of the Gary Harris Show after this.
Weekday mornings at 6 a.m. The Martin Houston Show.
Join the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier, powered by Fox Eye Care. For a Tuesday edition of the program, we'll bring in DC Capstone Report. We'll keep the conversation rolling regarding Bama versus LSU. We'll get DC's take on Alabama's first official game against UNC Asheville. We'll also take a jaunt around the SEC and college football as we look at the first college football playoff ranking. We'll talk about it, those conversations and more.
TBC 1230 with Wyatt Fulton and Matt Coulter, presented by BMW of Tuscaloosa, Pearl River Resort and Casino, Tuscaloosa Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, and Walk-Ons.
If you haven't already, you've got to try Tuscaloosa's unique breakfast, brunch, and lunch concept. Brick and Spoon, downtown Tuscaloosa, Timerson Square. It's fresh food with a Cajun flair featuring a full bar with build-your-own Bloody Marys and mimosas. Open daily, 7 a.m. until 2 p.m. Available for after-hours events.
I'll still be making the plays. You'll be making the bets. And finally getting the sports glory you deserve. The Sportsbook at Golden Moon Casino. Play the game.
Los Tarascos has been serving Mexican favorites like burritos, fajitas, and quesadillas since 1999. Their new location is at 4100 Owen Parkway in Northport. And, of course, you can find Los Tarascos in Tuscaloosa at 110 Skyland Boulevard. The bar areas feature big screen television so you can enjoy your favorite sporting events. Los Tarascos features daily.
Is the place to be. Visit us now to save big and discover why so many are switching to BMW. BMW of Tuscaloosa. Take your dreams for a drive.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The sky partly sunny today, the high 79. Tonight mostly fair with the low at 64. Tomorrow and Wednesday, a mixture of clouds and sunshine both days with a chance of scattered showers. Afternoon highs very close to 80. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 72 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Covering University of Alabama sports, as well as the national and local scene as well. The Gary Harris Show, only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
9:58, T-Town, Menswear T-Town Gallery. Alabama football trivia every Friday. We'll be back with our trivia contest this Friday, live from Innisfree Irish Pub as part of Fridays for Free. We'll be giving away another big full-color Alabama football print on Friday, so we look forward to that. Matthew Travis, sports director at KPLC TV in Lake Charles, Louisiana, is going to join us at 10:30 to preview Alabama and LSU. Matt graciously agreed to jump on with us on short notice. Also in the second hour, we're going to hear from Bryce Young, picking up a win as the quarterback of the Panthers, Derrick Henry, as well as he went over 1,000 yards for the season and over 100 career rushing touchdowns. Hour number 2, the Gary Harris Show, is on the way. This hour has been brought to you by Alabama Credit Union. Stay with us, everybody.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Nick Cope.
Breaking news in the NFL over the last hour. Reports say the Saints have fired coach Dennis Allen. After starting 2-0, New Orleans has lost 7 in a row, including a 1-point loss to the Panthers on Sunday. The 2-7 record is tied for the worst in the league. Allen was in the midst of his third season with the Saints. He finishes his tenure with an 18-25 record. NFL media reports the interim coach is expected to be assistant head coach and special teams coordinator Darren Rizzi. Another 2-7 team has made some coaching changes. The Raiders fired offensive coordinator Luke Getsy as well as a pair of offensive assistants. On Sunday Night Football, the Vikings got back on track with a 21-13 win over the Colts.
Every game all season right here on your home for Alabama basketball. The Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
The Gary Harris Show. UCM host Tider Insider TV. Crimson Tide Kickoff. Play-by-play for Alabama sports and sports director for WVUA 23. It's time for the Gary Harris Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, welcome into hour number 2 of the Gary Harris Show. It's 10:02 a.m. on this Monday, November 4th, 2023. 24, and tomorrow is Election Day. So it is going to be crazy in terms of this presidential election. I think it's going to be a tight race. So we are obviously a sports show, and we don't talk, I talk a lot of pop culture. I talk a lot of music. I don't talk politics much and don't care to. It's outside my wheelhouse, but I am going to acknowledge that what we got coming up tomorrow is a very special day, to say the least. This hour, we've got Matthew Travis from KPLC in Lake Charles, Louisiana, talking Alabama and LSU. Your phone calls are welcome on the Pinnacle Park at North River hotline at 205-342-9904. We'd love to hear from you in this hour. Kind of catch back up on some news and notes because we jumped right into phone calls pretty early in the first hour. Alabama football really benefited from not having played on Saturday. The Tide didn't play a game, but Bama came out a big winner. And I think that Alabama, as I've said last week, and I even more believe it now, is in control of its own destiny. I think if Alabama wins these next 4 games, 10-2, they're going to the college football playoff. What happened Saturday was good for Alabama. Even Penn State, which was undefeated, still getting hung with a loss. But Clemson, A&M, and Iowa State all losing, big for the Crimson Tide. Moving up to 11 in the polls, big for the Crimson Tide. In a really good situation now, I think, and I look at Alabama as a team that, as I said with Rodney Orr, disappointed they lost 2 games. But you can't do anything about that now. Still, though, you put yourself in position to be in a good spot. Also, Saturday in the SEC, outside of the South Carolina, not just win over A&M, but really kind of a beatdown in the second half, 44-20. You had Georgia 34-20 over Florida. That doesn't tell the story here. Lagway went down early for Florida. Still, the Gators were in this game and leading this game for quite a while. And this game didn't get decided until late. But Georgia found a way. And you have to go back to 2020 when Florida beat Georgia to find the last time that somebody outside of Alabama has beat this team. I mean, Georgia hasn't lost a game to anybody other than Alabama in 4 years. Let that sink in. If there's no Alabama, Georgia's on a one of the a 60-something game win streak. It's incredible. Tennessee did not have an easy time against Kentucky, but did win the game, 28-18. Ole Miss rolled into Fayetteville and probably had their most impressive performance of the year. They hung 63 on the Hogs, 63-31. Vanderbilt, as we alluded to at the top of the show, was an 8-point underdog, and I couldn't figure that out. I just wasn't. I thought this was a 1-score game either way. It turned out to be a 2-score game. Vanderbilt beat Auburn 17-7, despite the fact that the Vanderbilt offense didn't do a lot in the game. Pavia was banged up. Auburn's defense played really, really well. But again, Auburn falls short, and Vanderbilt takes care of the Tigers 17-7. And then Oklahoma beat up on Maine as expected. That was a lopsided game. And let's see here. What was the final in that game? I'm trying to pull it up. It was 59-14. And Mississippi State was able to get a win, their second of the year, over UMass, 45-20. The schedule this week, in addition to Alabama and LSU down in Baton Rouge, you've got Florida at Texas, Georgia at Ole Miss. That's a big one. South Carolina at Vanderbilt. That's an interesting game. Mississippi State at Tennessee, and Oklahoma is at Missouri. So SEC football winding it down. All right, let's go up out on the Pinnacle Park at North River hotline and welcome in Glenn from over in Birmingham. Good morning, Glenn.
Hey, Gary. How you doing this morning?
Doing great, my friend.
Hey, listen, Gary. I got some pretty good bulletin board material for Bama this weekend. If you can find a way to get it over there to them. You ever heard of Blake Rufino?
Blake Ruffino. The name sounds familiar, but I can't tell you that I know who he is.
He's a LSU talk show host that does LSU football. And I was listening to him this morning from a station there in Monroe, Louisiana, and they were talking about the game coming up this weekend. And his point of view that he stressed several times was that Alabama's defensive line is terrible. He said this is the worst Alabama's defensive line they've had in 20 years. He says they're not physical. They don't move to the ball too well. And he says if LSU has any kind of running game, that this should be a victory for LSU. So because we have such a porous and terrible defensive line, he thinks that's the key to LSU winning this game.
Okay. Well, we'll see. I thought Alabama's defensive line played one of its better games against Missouri, but you know what? He's not the only one that feels that way. There's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years that Alabama's defensive line is not what it once was, certainly based on the draft. You can make that argument. They haven't been turning out players in the draft the way that they did. And but I still think that they're pretty good, and we'll see. Maybe he's right, but I think Alabama's defensive line will represent down there and play well. And I think if LSU wins the game, they're going to win it through the air. I don't think that they're going to. I don't think they're going to run the ball for a ton of yards against Alabama. But I'm sure that Alabama football defensive linemen will be made aware of that. I can promise you that.
We have a 29-10 record at Baton Rouge, so that's not too shabby.
Nope, have owned them down there. Nobody else has ever even come close to the type of success that Alabama has had against LSU down there. I spoke on that earlier with Rodney Orr. I think that passes down from one team to the next. I really do. I think there's a confidence level that this program has, regardless of who the coach is, regardless of which team it is. I think when they go into Baton Rouge, they feel like they're going to win. So, listen, it's all on the line. There's no way to sugarcoat it. There's no way to try to figure out a silver lining. If you lose this game, you're not going to go to the college football playoff. That's just the reality. So, in essence, it's a playoff game to some degree. I mean, you've got to win this one to be in position to get to the college football playoffs. So, both teams know that. Both teams understand it, and both teams will play like that and play with full out effort. And the team that wins will be in good shape, and the team that doesn't is going to start trying to finish out the season, knowing they're only going to a bowl game, and start looking forward to next year. That's just the way it is.
You're right. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you. Good call. Appreciate it, Glenn. All right, it's 10:11 here on the Gary Harris Show, and let's get to the Derrick Henry audio, Chase, because it's a little shorter than Bryce. And Derrick Henry, as we have already discussed, is a future Hall of Famer. He's a generational player. He's one of the greatest running backs in the history of the game of football at every level, high school, college, and in the NFL. The only thing he hasn't done is win a Super Bowl. Maybe that's going to come with the Baltimore Ravens, but he now is over 10,000 yards rushing. He's over 100 yards, over 100 career touchdowns on the ground. He's also, I think, caught 4 touchdowns. I think his total touchdowns may be up to 105, but I think he's 101 rushing touchdowns in his career. And the Ravens beat up on the Broncos yesterday. Derrick Henry, after the game, meeting with the media there in Baltimore.
How y'all doing?
So, Derrick,
how y'all doing?
Doing well. Derrick, I think you're up to 13 touchdowns already this season. How much of it is just a want to get to that end zone?
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I give the credit to guys who are blocking to make my job easier, and all I got to do is just make my reads get north to south and make the most out of a play. So credit to all the guys blocking, do a great job, and all their unselfishness.
Derrick, on that point, from the first 2 weeks of this season to now, what do you think has been the biggest stride, especially for the offensive line and how they've been blocking?
I think it's just them executing. coming off the ball, being physical. I think the work that they do during the week, I think it shows on game day. And the chemistry they have up front, I think that shows as well. And, they take pride in it, in the run game and protecting Lamar. So, they deserve all the credit. Hats off to them.
Derek, you've talked about this a little bit, but what kind of impact does it have on you as a runner having a guy like Lamar back there, particularly when he's played, as well as he has this season?
Yeah, I know. I know you asked Coach Harbaugh about him running today. He didn't have to. He's dangerous with his arm, and I think he showed that today. If you want to take away him running the ball, go over your head and throw it. And if he got to run it, he'll do that as well. So hats off to him, man. He's an engine to make this thing go, and MV3. So
Derek, you are now at over 100 rushing touchdowns in your career, which surpassed Barry Sanders, who had 99. Just what does that mean to you?
God has been tremendously good to me, and I'm thankful. And credit to everybody who's been a part of my career to help me get to this milestone. Barry Sanders is like a running back superhero, so that's very cool, and I don't take it for granted.
Derek, you guys have said all often this season it's a pick your poison type offense. In the first half, I think you guys had 24 yards rushing, but you threw for over 200 yards and 2 scores. And then the second half of the run game, is this sort of what you mean by that? That if the defense wants to take away one thing, you guys will adjust and do something else?
Well, I think it just credits the offensive line protecting L finding the open guys and the receivers getting open. The receivers, the tight ends, everybody just did a great job of, if they want to take away the run, those guys did a great job of getting open and opening it up for everybody. And Zay Flowers did a great job, and he's just so dynamic. When you get the ball in his hands, you just assume he's going to score, and it's going to be a big play every time. So him and L did a great job today, receivers, tight ends. So credit to them for us to be complimentary and be able to do both.
Derek, were you aware that you had 99 yards before that last series you went in and got the extra yards to get over 100?
Yeah, they kept saying it, so I'm like, if I get it, I get it. I shouldn't have went in there because the ball was on the ground and stuff like that. It's glad we got it over with, and it is what it is. But yeah, man. For me to have the day that I had, I give credit to everybody blocking, but I'm not happy with how I played, and I need to do better this next game. But any success I had, give the credit to them. To me, I'm not too happy about the game. So,
Derek, you got just the 1 day of practice with Lamar this week. Was there any indication that he was going to be less than 100% for this game?
What L got to do to get him ready to play, that's what he's going to do. And he showed it today. He needed 1 day and had a perfect passer rating. So whatever he needs to do to be able to go play, that's what he has to do. And I feel like, it don't matter. If it's 1 day or half a day, he's going to be ready. So.
Derek, John had said in the locker room, you had said, hey, it's on a Thursday night already. It's on Cincinnati. It's your first year here. How well have you taken this vibe of AFC North football in this way? Because it's like you said, it's Cincinnati Thursday night.
Yeah, it's a battle. Every division game we had has been a battle and came down to the wire. So we just gotta lock in, tomorrow to get ready for those guys. Divisions, it's a tough division. They have great teams, great players. So just us just being locked in and being focused until Thursday comes and get ready for Cincy.
All right, thanks, Derek.
All right, great stuff there from Derrick Henry. And, one thing I picked up on him, he wants to win a Super Bowl. He understands how good he is, but he's really also fully aware of what it takes to be a good teammate and that this is Lamar Jackson's team. And he has not tried to step on Lamar's toes. He tried to be a complimentary player. I noticed when he's being interviewed by Tracy Wolfson after the game on CBS yesterday, he's asked about, he's an MVP candidate in his own right, but he just passes that off and he just says, nope, Lamar's the MVP. L's the guy. I'm just here to do my job. And I really appreciate that about him. He's he knows who he's playing with, and he, he's He's not just a great player, but he fits in well in the locker room, which is very important. All right, 10-17, the YMCA of Tuscaloosa is right there at 2300 13th Street. I was in yesterday afternoon, got a little workout in. Planning on going back today after the radio show, and you'll love the Y as well. I've been a member for over 20 years. I was at the original Y, and now I'm at the, I say new Y. It's already been here, I guess, 8 or 9 years. Time flies, man. But I love it, and get by and check it out. If you're not already a member, let them give you a tour. A great facility, great personal trainers, fitness classes. Seniors can get in on the Silver Sneakers program. They've got, daycare, just a really terrific facility. The YMCA of Tuscaloosa, 2300 13th Street downtown. The Y is ready for you when you're ready for the Y. And we'll be back with more of the Gary Harris Show. Phone calls are available on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline, 205-342-9.
Better living at First and Main. Visit firstandmaincondos.com or call 205-657-7465. Mention you heard about us on the radio and receive 1 month free rent.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The sky partly sunny today, the high 79. Tonight, mostly fair with the low at 64. Tomorrow and Wednesday, a mixture of clouds and sunshine both days with a chance of scattered showers. Afternoon highs very close to 80. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 72 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Tide 100.9. For more coverage of Alabama football, visit us at Tide100.9.com or download the free Tide 100.9 app.
The Crimson Tide will not be denied.
10:22. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show. As I mentioned earlier in the show, some breaking news from the NFL. The Saints have fired head coach Dennis Allen. That's according to ESPN's insider Adam Schefter. Saints just 2 wins, and what makes it even worse is they started 2-0. And in their first 2 games, I don't know if you remember this now, but they scored like 90 points. It was unbelievable. They were averaging like 45 points a game, and looked like they were going to be a juggernaut, and they haven't won since. So Dennis Allen out in New Orleans. Right now, let's jump out on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline, and that's where we find Steve here in Tuscaloosa. Hey, Steve.
Good morning, Gary. How you doing?
Doing well.
Good. I love it when you talk about Alabama in the NFL. I really enjoy that.
Well, good. I enjoy it, too. I enjoy tracking those guys. In fact, I'm going to run them all down here in just a little bit, but some great performances again yesterday. Every week, I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, I know there are other teams that have players in the NFL too, but you can't watch a game and not see an Alabama guy contributing. It's unbelievable.
Well, I have really sort of zeroed in on on the Lions, on Detroit. I am not I'm not a long time NFL guy. In fact, I'm barely a short time, maybe 5 or 6 years now. I just got started. I've always kept up with it, but I never really watched the games much. But how good is Jahmyr Gibbs?
He's unbelievably good. He's got a gear that even at that level, most players don't have. And I do, David Montgomery, gets the start and gets more carries than Gibbs. And I know there are some people complaining about that. Detroit fans I'm talking about. I've been on their board saying, why would you give Montgomery more? But I'm going to tell you something, though, Steve. It works well for them. Montgomery's kind of your meat and potatoes guy. Good back. Now, obviously good back.
Right.
But then you bring in Gibbs and you get that change of pace, and he's explosive. So I think sometimes you'll see he's got 11 carries for 88 yards, and you're like, man, if he had 20 carries, he'd have nearly 200 yards. And he's had some games like that. But I just think that explosive element that he has, the change of pace, ability to catch it out of the backfield, I think it works well with the way that they're using him. I think at some point he'll be the main guy there, although they just signed Montgomery to a big contract. But to answer your question, he's special. He's a special football player. And, look back to the 1 year that he had here. And I guess what makes it so disappointing about that 2022 team is they lost those 2 games on the final play of the game at Tennessee and the final play of the game at LSU. And you had Gibbs, you had Bryce Young, that you had Will Anderson Jr. That team, didn't even make it to Atlanta. And that was a national championship caliber team. But he's a special player, no doubt about it.
Well, let me ask you this: Are you in the camp that, and this is probably another hindsight kind of thing, but do you believe that Jahmyr Gibbs was just grossly underused here at Alabama the 1 year he was here?
Well, no, I don't. I guess it's a little bit like the Lions situation. He had a phenomenal year. I mean, he had a phenomenal year. I don't know. Maybe you could have used him more. That team, to me, though, Steve, again, it just came down to they lost a couple of games, and all in all, that team was explosive. They were really good. The game they lost at Tennessee, the offense was dynamic in that game. Bryce coming off the injury. I mean, you score 49 points and get beat. And even at LSU, I thought, so maybe underused, not grossly underused. And of course, there's one play that sticks out. As good as Jahmyr Gibbs was, that final drive at Tennessee, they ran the little, O'Brien dialed up that little over the middle pass to him, and he's probably still running if he catches it. And that's probably going to be a touchdown, or certainly going to put him in position for a chip shot field goal. And he dropped it.
Sure.
And now that's the only time I ever remember even dropping a pass. But he dropped that ball. If he catches that ball, they beat Tennessee. And then even if they don't beat LSU, they're still in Atlanta playing for the SEC championship. So, I would like to be able to go back in time, because I look at that roster with Bryce Young and with Gibbs, and you just say, man, so I don't feel like he was underutilized, but I don't feel like that team lived up to its potential because it lost a couple of games that, I don't think they should have lost.
Jameson Williams out there as well.
Yeah, and so it was just a team that had so much talent, and of all the teams that Saban had, and there's been others that come up short. I say it all the time. College football is lucky that Saban didn't win more national championships. They're lucky he didn't win 8 or 9 or 10. But that 2022 team, and of course I went to New Orleans and covered them in the Sugar Bowl against Kansas State, and you saw it in that game. You saw Gibbs, you saw Young, you saw that team and what it almost was. But he's a great player, and I'm with you. I think he's one of the most explosive guys in the National Football League. A lot of fun to watch.
He's a lot of fun to watch. To widen it out, Detroit in and of itself is just fun to watch. But I do.
Oh, they really are. I mean, they're that coach Dan Campbell is an aggressive guy. They're an aggressive team. Brian Branch got ejected yesterday. I thought the call was right for the penalty. I thought to eject him was just ridiculous. But they play in a style that they're always. Coaches talk about being aggressive. It's like Nate Oates. He doesn't just talk about it. He coaches that way. Dan Campbell coaches that way. If anything, there are times I'm watching the Lions, I'm saying, please do take your foot off the gas a little bit. Let's be a little conservative here, because even with a lead, man, they just keep coming. So they're a fun team to watch. They, you can make an argument. I know Kansas City is undefeated, and obviously you've got, Baltimore strong, but you can make an argument that the Detroit Lions are the best team in the National Football League. You really could.
I'd have to agree with that. At this point, and I like Kansas City. I really do. I don't really have a favorite. I like how they win. They win pretty ugly because of their depleted, core. But it's just a lot of every chance I get, if they're on, I'm watching Detroit. Gary, I'll let you go. I just want to tell you how much I enjoy your show, and I appreciate the segments when you spread out Alabama football in the NFL.
Well, I appreciate you listening, Steve. We're going to get to Tom real quick before we have to hit the break. Hey, Tom.
The only thing wrong with Gibbs' career at Alabama is him dropping that pass at Tennessee. And Bill O'Brien had us in position to win that game, threw the ball to Gibbs. He dropped it. If he hadn't dropped that ball, he probably would have scored a touchdown.
Yeah, he probably would have. And And he did, and I know he wishes he had it back too. But you're right; they dialed it up on that play. Although I did, I'm with you. That play was there. They dialed it up. He dropped it. Although on the third down play, I still think they should have ran the ball. But anyway, hindsight's 20/20. But he was a great player. But in that particular case, yeah, he had one-on-one on a linebacker. Bryce hit him right in the hands, and he dropped it.
It was a great call by O'Brien.
It was. It absolutely was. Yeah.
See you.
All right. See you, Tom. All right, 10:30. We're
100% satisfaction and appointments set around your schedule. Give us a call for all your steam cleaning needs. 205-553-9460. Houston Hydro Steam. Quality work you can stand on.
You see him on WVUA 23 covering sports and on Tider Insider TV on Tuesday nights. Don't miss a minute of the Gary Harris Show. Weekdays from 9 to 11 on Tide 100.9.
All right, 10:33. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show, and we're going to jump out on the Pinnacle Park at North River Hotline. A reminder, Pinnacle Park at North River, luxury townhomes in a gated community near beautiful Lake Tuscaloosa. Find out more at pinnacleparknr.com. And Matthew Travis from KPLC in Lake Charles, Louisiana, joining us on short notice this morning, so we really appreciate that. Hey, good morning, Matt.
Hey, Gary, how you doing?
Doing great. It's a big week. I've already talked about it ad nauseum this morning from the Alabama perspective, but it's the same thing for LSU. This is an elimination game. The winner of this game is going to be in position to still have an opportunity to get in the college football playoff. I don't think that there's any doubt that the way it's looking, that the loser of this game is out. So it is what it is. It's a playoff game, and for all intent and purposes. And LSU's at home. Just like Alabama coming off a bye, what's the vibe down on the bayou in regards to Alabama coming to town this Saturday night?
Well, it's a lot different than it was three weeks ago before that Texas A&M game when they kind of got exposed defensively they stopped the quarterback because he only attempted 2 passes in the second half, but they couldn't stop him running the ball, and that's what ended up shooting them in the foot. But they still feel good about it. I mean, a couple weeks ago, before they lost to A&M, before Alabama lost to Tennessee, we were talking about this game as it could have potentially been a top 5 matchup because Alabama was 7th, LSU was 8th, and they've both lost the game since then. But it still has a lot of luster, and like you said, it's an elimination game, and they're home for it. So they feel pretty good about it, but it should be a great game.
Yeah, it should be. And when you look at what happened at A&M, Matthew, and you cover LSU, it was such a weird game because in the first half, LSU was dominant. I mean,
yeah,
Nussmeier was making the throws. They were controlling the ball. The defense looked good. And then the quarterback change comes, and it was like just two different games. And not only did LSU wind up losing that game, they got hammered pretty good. What happened?
Yeah, I mean, the key for Texas A&M, it didn't work out this past week at South Carolina, but the key for them was LSU clearly did not game plan for Marcel Reed, and they weren't prepared to face a running quarterback. They were prepared to face Connor Wegman, who sits back in the pocket, and they were able to disrupt him in the first half. He only completed 6 of 18 pass attempts. Mike Elko goes to Marcel Reed. Reed only attempted 2 passes in the second half and still ran for 62 yards on 9 attempts. And they just ran it down LSU's throat, forced turnovers. I mean, 3 of Garrett Nussmeier's 9 turnovers or 9 interceptions this season were in that Texas A&M game. And they came in that second half, and it ended up being what Texas A&M needed to win because they outscored him in the second half alone. It was 31-6. And that was the difference right there after LSU led 17-7 at the half. And they clearly were just not ready for a running quarterback, which you would have to assume over the last 2 weeks, given the bye week and then this upcoming week before Saturday's game, they are preparing for Jalen Milroe, because if they were not ready for a running quarterback, they are going to have a very hard time stopping Milroe in Alabama.
the aura of playing at night in Tiger Stadium, and I do think it's real for most teams. The problem is Alabama isn't most teams, and the aura is actually in reverse. Alabama's 29-10-2 all time against LSU at Tiger Stadium. They went 16-1-1 from 1965 to 1998. So they don't really just have a good record against LSU in Baton Rouge. They've dominated. They've won 2/3 of the time.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, before 2022, that was my first year here in Lake Charles. LSU hadn't beaten Alabama in Baton Rouge since 2010. So it was like a monkey off their back to finally beat them in Death Valley. And now the question is, does one turn into two, and et cetera? But, I mean, that's Kalen DeBoer's job to make sure one doesn't turn into two. But, yeah, I mean, I assume you've been to a night game in Death Valley or Death Valley in general.
I've been to many. I have been probably to. I can add. I want to add them up because I want to see how many I have been to. And listen, I've been to afternoon games there now, Matt. I've been to afternoon games, but total in Baton Rouge, my first time to ever go there was 85.
It was an afternoon game. It just went to overtime, so it felt like it ended at 9:30 because it took forever.
Yeah, so I've been probably. Like I said, my first game ever there was 85, and that was an afternoon game, and that was a tie, believe it or not. That was a tie. That's one of the two ties down there. But I've probably been to, at least 7 or 8 games down there, maybe 10, because I went regularly up until about, I guess the last time I went down there was 2016, maybe. But up until that time, I had gone, Matt, I think. You know, I went in 12, I went in 14, I went in 16. I didn't go in 10. I went in 8. I didn't go in 6. I went in 2002. I went, like I said before, they flipped them to even years. I went in 85. I went in 87. I went in 89. I went in 91 and 92 because they played them back to back after they flipped the schedule when Arkansas and South Carolina. So yeah, I've probably been to 10 games there or so down there, and it is always fun, and it's always memorable, and it's been memorable for Alabama more times than not because I'm trying to remember if I've been to a loss down there. I don't know that I've ever seen them lose down there. Well, I did because I didn't go in 2010, and they lost. I didn't go that year, so I think I may have been to all wins and a tie, but I have to go back and look at them for sure.
Well, it sounds like Alabama needs to get you out there on Saturday.
Well, I'm not going to be there Saturday night, as I said. The age is taking a toll now. The doing a hour high school show on Friday night and then getting up Saturday morning and driving to Baton Rouge and covering a night game and coming back. I think those days are behind me. I'll be sending a couple of young 20-somethings down there on Saturday night, Matt.
There you go. Well, I will be there and I'll see him, and then I'm turning around and driving to you in Tuscaloosa for Monday.
Yeah, you're going to be up here for some basketball, so that'll be good. So what's your gut feeling on this game? Do you think do you favor Alabama or do you favor LSU at home?
I do like Alabama. It's kind of it's crazy to say it's hard to pick against them, but I think Alabama did figure something out in that Missouri game. Granted, they weren't going up against Cook; they were going up against a backup quarterback, but I think they just needed a little jolt of confidence after the way the South Carolina and obviously the Tennessee, Vanderbilt, and the way those games had gone. I think they needed a little boost of confidence, and I think winning 34-0 is a good boost of confidence. And if they can weather the storm that is Death Valley, I think Alabama will find success. I think LSU is still going to have trouble stopping the run. I mean, they gave up 245 rushing yards, and in 2 of the 4 games they've lost or almost lost. They've given up 240-plus yards of rushing. They've done a good job of stopping the air attack, but they've struggled to stop the rushing attack. They did okay against USC, but even Ole Miss, when they went to overtime, it was 180 yards. So they struggled to stop the run. So if Alabama can keep peppering the run and handing it off to Young and Miller and everyone else, I think Alabama will be okay. I don't think it will be a low scoring game. Both teams will be in the 20s plus. But my gut feeling just tells me Alabama is going to be okay.
you mentioned the performance against Missouri. I thought it was the defensive line's best game for Alabama all year. But I had a caller call in earlier this morning and said there was a talk show he listened to out of Monroe, Louisiana this morning. And he said the guy was part of the LSU radio broadcast. I can't remember his name. But he said this guy was saying that that's where LSU would win this game, that Alabama's defensive line was not good, was not physical, would get pushed around, and that he thought LSU could get its running game going against Alabama. What do you make of those comments?
I don't know that LSU has a running back that I can trust. I mean, if you just look at the Texas A&M game, as a team, they ran for 35 yards. Josh Williams had 7 carries for 23. Caden Durham had 11 rushes for 15 yards. And I just don't know that they have a running back that I can trust to really pepper that. I mean, if you look at all of the games that they've lost or almost lost, USC, they ran for 117. Ole Miss, they ran for 84. And South Carolina, they ran for 132, which obviously is decent. But I don't think they have a running back that I can trust that I would put too much stock into that they're going to run the ball in Alabama and that's how they're going to win. I think they win or lose the game with Garrett Nussmeier. You saw it in the second half 2 weeks ago. They were up 17-7 at halftime. He throws picks and they lose the game 38-23. I think it's going to be a win or loss with Garrett Nussmeier because they attempted 50 passes against A&M and only ran the ball 22 times. So I don't buy that a whole lot. I don't think it's going to be win or loss with LSU's running backs.
For Alabama, this year has been a transitional year, and there's no doubt about it. Matthew, they've lost 2 games. Games that you'd love to have back. I mean, I think they feel like they're better than Tennessee. I think they feel like they're better than Vanderbilt. But they didn't win those games, and they could have lost to Georgia after blowing that big lead. And they could have lost to South Carolina. So 6-2. What my point is, I'm fine with it. They're you got to finish the season, and if you don't, you drop another game, it's going to be disappointing. You're going to be playing in a bowl game. You're not going to be in the playoff. But if this team finishes it out 10-2, I think they'll be in the playoff. But even if they're not, I'm going to be very pleased with it. If this team goes 10-2 in a transition year, I think Alabama fans should be happy whether they get in the playoff or not. Would you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I would agree. I think looking at this season before it began, I was thinking there are 4 games Alabama could lose. It was obviously Georgia, Tennessee, this LSU game in Oklahoma. Those are the games that I was thinking if they drop 2 of those, it'll be okay. I didn't obviously see them losing to Vanderbilt, but at most college football teams that aren't Alabama, Georgia, those elite of the elite, you tell them they're going to go 10-2 and they're over the moon about it. Alabama, and now we're obviously upset, but 10-2, I do think gets you into the playoffs. I mean, Alabama is 11th in the country right now. If you beat LSU at LSU, who's 14th, that should be enough to get you into the playoff, assuming they win out against Mercer, Oklahoma, and Auburn. But 10-2, you have to be happy for it in a transition year where the story preseason was everyone left in the portal. Look at Caleb Downs, look at Julian Sane, look at all this. And they would still come out and make the inaugural 12-team playoff. I think that would be a success no matter how the playoff goes. If it's a home game, which it probably wouldn't be at this rate, or whatever it is, how they fare. I would be, personally, as an Alabama graduate, I would be happy with 10-2.
All right, Matt, good stuff. And basketball tips it off tonight with a doubleheader. The women get New Orleans at 5, and the men get UNC Asheville at 8. The men without Youngblood until probably mid-December, plus Grant Nelson, Sherrod, and Reitzel didn't play in the exhibition games. I understand they're going to be on a minutes restriction tonight, won't start. Any concerns there about Alabama being a little dinged before the season even starts?
Against UNC Asheville, I wouldn't be, but the team I cover, McNeese, is coming into town a week from today, and they have transfers from Ole Miss, from Syracuse. That's the game that if they're not healthy and they kind of sleepwalk through, they could see themselves slip up and maybe not lose to a McNeese team, but McNeese just had their best season in program history a year ago, and they're a better team. So against UNC Asheville, I wouldn't be overly concerned, but if they can't get healthy and get them back, get Nelson and everyone else back in the starting lineup for a week, because I know the bench today and on a minutes restriction, which, like I said, UNC Asheville, they still should be okay, but that McNeese team isn't a team to take lightly, and if they can't get healthy and get them up to speed a little more, I think that might be a game that Alabama finds themselves in a close one with down the stretch.
Yeah, you and your new BFF Will Wade. Now that you and him become tight, all of a sudden McNeese is a threat to come in here and pull the upset. I see how it works. Okay.
Hey, McNeese was a popular upset pick against Gonzaga. It didn't go their way, but they addressed a lot of their concerns. And I'm not predicting they beat Alabama because Will Wade would come into the press conference room and immediately start it with me. But if Alabama's not healthy and they kind of walk into that one lightly, it could be a game that they find themselves in a closer battle with than they would want to and would expect to.
Yeah, I just got a message on social media. See if you're familiar with this guy. Blake Ruffino is the guy that I guess is on a talk show. I don't know if he's based in Monroe, but they were listening to him on a radio. Are you familiar with him?
I am not. I don't know.
Okay. Evidently he's an LSU radio show guy, but he's the guy who said the Alabama defensive line wasn't good. All right, good stuff, Matthew. And I know you're knocking out the Sports Daily down there at KPLC. And if you want to give your social media handles out, feel free to do so.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at MatthewJTravis _ I have a lot of Alabama opinions and everything else on there as well.
Thanks, Matt.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary.
All right, 10:49 here on the Gary Harris Show. We got one segment to go, and I am going to come back on the other side. And a lot of people talk about my Bama and the NFL updates. One thing about them, when I put them on social media, and I guess I need to start listening to the offensive linemen that play in the game, because a lot of people are talking about where's Cam Robinson, where is Jedrick Wills, where are these guys, Landon Dickerson. I don't usually list offensive linemen simply because they don't record any stats unless they're sacks. But I guess I need to at least just make a list of those guys because, and I don't listen. I miss some guys. That's the thing. I've told people add to the list. I try to get as many of them on there as I can, but I might miss a guy, and then people want to know where was Will Reichard, who did miss his first 2 field goals, as we mentioned. Well, I did it before the Sunday night game, and of course the Monday night game, and then where's Najee Harris? Well, the Steelers didn't play; they're on bye. So there's
every game all season right here on your home for Alabama basketball, the Crimson Tide Sports Network from Learfield.
Weekday mornings at 6 a.m. The Martin Houston Show.
Join the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier, powered by Box Eye Care. For a Tuesday edition of the program, we'll bring in DC Capstone Report. We'll keep the conversation rolling regarding Bama versus LSU. We'll get DC's take on Alabama's first official game against UNC Asheville. We'll also take a jaunt around the SEC and college football as we look at the first college football playoff ranking. We'll talk about it. Those conversations and more right here on your home for Alabama Sports Talk 100.9 and 12:30 a.m.
Catch the Martin Houston Show from 6 to 7 weekday mornings on Tide 100.9.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Sky partly sunny today, the high 79. Tonight mostly fair with the low at 64. Tomorrow and Wednesday, a mixture of clouds and sunshine both days with a chance of scattered showers. Afternoon highs very close to 80. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 72 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
A national championship team covering a national championship team. The best sports talk in the state. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
All right, 10:54. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show, winding it down, getting you ready for T-Town Sports Daily at the top of the hour. All right, Bama in the NFL, and again, I try to list everybody that I can. Offensive linemen, I'm just going to start listing them based on participation because, again, there's not any stats for them usually unless they give up a sack, but some people are asking about where the offensive linemen are at. But I'm going to try to run these down for you in our last few minutes. We did not get to the Bryce Young audio. We did get to Derrick Henry, but Bryce Young went 16 of 26 for 171, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, was not his fault. He hit the guy right in the numbers, and he had it taken away from him. He had 4 rushes for 9 yards as Carolina got a win over the Saints. Also in that game for the Panthers, A'Shawn Robinson had 6 tackles in a quarterback hurry. The former big defensive lineman for Alabama, and LeBron Ray had 5 tackles for Carolina. Miami lost a heartbreaker in the final seconds to Buffalo on a 61-yard field goal, but Tua had a really good game. 25 of 28 for 231, 2 touchdowns, no picks, was sacked once, had 2 rushes for 3 yards. Waddle had 2 catches for -4 yards, but one of them was a touchdown. So he did have a touchdown. Deshaun Hand, playing defense for Miami, had 3 tackles, a tackle for loss, 1 pass defended, and 1 quarterback hurry. Derrick Henry for the Ravens, of course, 23 carries, 106 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 catch for 27 yards. Marlon Humphrey had a tackle and a pass defended in that game. Patrick Surtain for Denver against Baltimore had 2 tackles. Daron Payne for Washington in their win over the Giants had 3 tackles. Phidarian Mathis had 2 tackles. Jordan Battle for the Bengals in their win over the Raiders had 5 tackles, 1 pass defended, and 1 quarterback hurry. J.K. Scott punting for the Chargers, 7 punts, averaged 47.1 yards per punt, had a long of 55. He's having a great season. Jerry Jeudy for the Browns in that game against the Chargers had 7 catches for 73 yards. Dalvin Tomlinson, defensive lineman for Cleveland, 3 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, and 3 quarterback hurries. Calvin Ridley for Tennessee in their win over the Patriots had 5 catches for 73 yards. Anthony Jennings for the Patriots had 5 tackles. Jalen Hurts, another big game, 18 of 24, 230, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 13 rushes for 67 yards and a touchdown. One of those touchdown throws was to Devontae Smith, who had 4 catches for 87 yards, including the TD, as the Eagles won over the Jags. Mack Wilson for the Cardinals, 2 tackles and a quarterback hurry. Jahmyr Gibbs, 11 rushes, 65 yards and a touchdown, 1 catch for 11 yards. Terrion Arnold for Detroit, 5 tackles. Brian Branch for Detroit, 2 tackles injected in the second quarter for that targeting hit. Josh Jacobs, a nice game, 13 carries, 95 yards, 2 catches for 13 yards. Xavier McKinney for Green Bay, 5 tackles, 1 special teams tackle. And Jaron Reed for the Seahawks had 3 tackles and 2 quarterback hurries. And Josh Jobe for Seattle had 4 tackles and 1 pass deflection. I should have listed Quentin Williams from Thursday night for the Jets in the Thursday night game against the Texans. He had a nice game. I'll go back and add that out. All right, that's the Bama in the NFL wrap. And that's going to wrap it up for the Gary Harris Show. My thanks to Chase Brumfeld for manning the controls. Thanks to you for listening. And back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. with the Tuesday edition of the Gary Harris Show. T-Town Sports Daily is coming up next. Have a great day, everybody.